Welcome back to The Watch, and I want to discuss with Nathan an interesting response to the Barbie movie, which is a different interpretation of the messaging behind it. It's actually anti-feminist. Also that it's actually pro-men, and that Ken is the true hero of the film.
Okay.
Yeah. You're wondering how can that be?
How can that be anti-feminist? Well, okay. I can understand that in the sense of it's satire, and they're trying to overplay feminist ideals so people kind of see the maybe hypocrisy or calling out feminism for maybe some of its bad takes.
So what's actually happening here is there is a truth about feminism. They hate that women are being oppressed. We need to fight back against the patriarch. The patriarch is evil. And so for feminism to get any traction, they need women to be dissatisfied and upset and angry. That's how they get traction. That's how they get it to work. And as a result, they can't help but have some certain mask-off moments when they're really trying to push the feminist ideal and narrative that slips through the cracks and reveals feminism for what it really is. And that is sometimes unavoidable when they're just being a little bit more honest about it. Doesn't redeem it at all. Because this is the fundamental thing about Barbie, and I feel this is, you can't really argue against it. The intent behind it, right, is for feminist propaganda, all right, and to decry the patriarchy, men bad. The world is a patriarchal horrorscape where women are oppressed constantly and women's lives suck, basically, okay? That's the intent behind it. And they really push that through in a very, very heavy-handed way. And even though but this is the thing, they're also bad at trying to convey that message.
Right.
Because in conveying that message, there is a reading of the film that you can take, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Okay? But that doesn't mean, in my opinion, that the film is good in any way or pro-men. Because there are a number of people who have come out of Barbie being on Ken's side.
Yes.
Which is interesting. First of all, that's the exception. Most of the people coming out of Barbie, getting like if they even are wanting to take on the message, I see a lot of people that just try and ignore the message and just wanted a fun Barbie thing, and they get annoyed with culture war and politics and stuff, and so they just try and ignore it even though it's really in your face. But then I feel there's a lot of people coming out of this film that are getting, I guess, acknowledged in the sense of victimization and insecurities. There is a narrative in Barbie that really doubles down in validating a lot of stereotypical female insecurities. And I personally don't think that's a positive message at all. In actual fact, I think we should try and make women feel secure about who they are as women, and that men are here ready to support them, help them out, and we want to work together to make a better world. Okay? That's the message that we should want. To try and double down on these insecurities, it's just going to make women feel more unhappy. All right? But if you have an inclination to feel insecure about a lot of things, sometimes it feels good to be validated in this. This is actually a more stereotypical female behavior. I had to learn this when I got married, okay? When my wife would come to me wanting to vent and talk about some of the problems that she's dealing with, she didn't want me to fix it. No. And I found that frustrating in the extreme. It's like, but I can help you fix the problem. No. What she wanted was for me to listen and to validate her feelings.
Yes.
This is such a foreign concept for most men. Not all men, but most. It's just like, well, what? And I just could not understand. Like, if you're telling me a problem, don't you want me to, why would you tell me a problem if you don't want me to fix it? No. And so it is a very female kind of behavior. And so, and women know this instinctually, by the way.
Yeah.
Like I've seen my wife comfort other women, right? Just instinctually, she knows what she needs to do, and it's like sometimes just giving them a hug and validate and consoling them and understanding the emotion that the other woman is feeling. And my wife just understands it instinctually, and it's a credit. And it's one of the strengths of women, because men and women are different, and each of us have our strengths that make it's awesome to be it's awesome that women like to be women, and it's awesome that men like to be men, and we should celebrate the strengths that we have. And this is a strength that women have that should be celebrated. Barbie is made by women, okay, and they kind of understand that. And so there is a big message in the Barbie film about acknowledging and validating insecurities, but also things that women deal with. But then it doubles down, triples down, and goes way overboard and exaggerates them to a ridiculous level, honestly, like really ridiculous level. And this type of validation, like I said, isn't good, because sometimes instead of validating insecurities, what if we built up make them feel secure about who they are, okay? And that's a positive thing, and Barbie doesn't do that at all. So it is messaging like that I think some women are connecting with, okay? Other women not, but I think some women are resonating with that message about this movie gets how hard it is to be a woman. There's a line in this film that says, "It's impossible to be a woman."
Okay.
That's a dumb line, because look, in reality, it's not true, okay? There's a lot of women that don't find it that difficult to be a woman. In fact, they love being women. Being women is great and all that stuff. And it does strike you as a very female line, doesn't it? It's impossible. Like, I don't know. I've come across less men saying it's just impossible to be a man.
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe it's the feminist upbringing I had that's like, well, guys have it a bit easier in some aspects.
Yes, in some, but women have it easy in other aspects as well.
Yes.
You know what?
So I feel like at the end of the day, it balances out.
Well, I do feel it balances out, but the way it's acknowledged in society is not balanced. Men, honestly, they complain less about their hardships.
Yeah.
This shouldn't be a controversial statement, because the whole suck it up, you know, and what's weird is feminists even complain about that in regards to men. Men never go to the doctors enough when they're in pain or injured and stuff like that. And that's a thing of toxic masculinity. And that's them literally acknowledging that men complain less and deal with pain personally more, and don't make a public thing out. They make a public thing out of their own pain and suffering less than women do. And so if people are trying to say, you're a sexist misogynist first, try to say women are always complaining, I'm not saying that. But it's a reality in terms of, because I don't think women always complain, that's what I'm saying. But in terms of balance, women are, it's statistical, they do it more, and feminists are the ones who even acknowledge that, and they criticize men where you need to cry more and you need to go to the doctors more often when you're feeling in pain and stuff like that.
I mean, it's ironic when they do that, though, because then when guys do come out, like, they had one of the months that were doing one of the woke things, but it was the same month as Mental Health Day for men. And they didn't acknowledge any of that stuff for men, because they're like, well, you know, that's not important right now. We're doing this other stuff. Yeah. And then I go on TikTok a lot, okay? And,
oh, dear. Oh, no.
but I'm on the good side, because I get lots of this conversation happening. And the amount of time that I've seen people say, you know, I listened to them, the feminists, trying to say, you know, talk about your feelings. And the girlfriends and the girls are like, be quiet. I don't want to hear it. That's too much for me to handle. That's a burden for me. You're being a nuisance to me. And so the guys go, oh, okay, well, I won't do that then, because as a man, I can just not do it, but I'm doing it because that's what you asked me to do. It gets confusing for us sometimes.
Yes. And it's not about that, in terms of virtuous masculinity, it's not about that men should be taught to never express their difficulties, okay? It's that I think men should be taught to do it when it's appropriate, okay? And when you really need it, because a lot of times you need to suck it up because there's a job to be done, okay? And so breaking down when there's something that needs to be done is not going to be helpful, all right? You stub your toe when you're chopping the wood. Yeah. Suck it up, the wood needs to be chopped, okay? It's important for men to be taught to do that, because there's heavy lifting that needs to be done in society. There are vulnerable people that need to be protected. It's the honorable duty that men have that should be taught to be upheld. That's a positive thing. But when the time is right, yes, men can cry and talk about their hardships. By the way, guys usually talk about their difficulties with their mates and their hardships. And usually it needs the right environment and situation for it to come out naturally. It's awkward to just
I was going to say that too as well. Like sometimes when they deal with issues differently.
Yes.
So with women, if it's a hard day at work, they'll come home and want to talk about it. Men come home, want to exercise, play video games,
Yes.
do something else that will just
Gets their mind off of it.
have a release.
Yes. Sometimes talking about it can be the helpful thing, but sometimes not talking about it and letting it just distract us from the crap that we were bothered with, that we want out of our head, right? It's funny, the book Women Are from Mars, Men Are from Venus, I forget which planet.
Yeah.
They call it like caving, I think it is, that men go into their cave to process their emotions, where women like to express and talk about their emotions. Very different stereotypical ways. I know there's exceptions on both sides, but stereotypically, these are the ways that, we go through our emotions. But the whole point of this is to bring up, look, this is the result in society, because men actually talk about their problems less often, and men get less sympathy for being victims. That is not just a societal thing. That is also in the legal system, all right? Men get more severe sentences, less sympathy, right, for the same crime than women do, okay? So this is systemic. It exists that, men receive less sympathy for their hardships than women do, right? And I think men have just as much crap they deal with as women, but men go out of their way to protect women more than they do to protect men. And so women's problems and sufferings get acknowledged more than men do. And the Barbie movie is just exactly that. A lot of this is, it's impossible to be a woman. It's so difficult. What's really divisive and vile about that is then it starts to perpetuate the message that women are uniquely more oppressed to a really large degree, more so than men. Men get it easy. They get a free pass through life, where women, it's just impossible. You're either not thin enough or you're too thin. And there's this whole diatribe where they go through this stuff. All right, it's funny. The film is also self-aware enough to acknowledge that sometimes it's women that also criticize other women about that. The daughter says at one point, "Men hate women and women hate women." And look, that's just a subversive, bad line for multiple levels, because this is reality. Men don't hate women, okay? Men actually love women. We're attracted to women. We would love to get in relationships. And a lot of us men want to build families with women, okay? It's not to say that men can't criticize women and women can't criticize men. Because as much as women criticize women to validate the line that women hate women, that women also criticize men a whole hell of a lot. And so, you could say in that context that women hate men as well. And Barbie certainly hates men, because, the Barbie film hates men to a very large degree. But so it is interesting that the Barbie film will actually resonate with women on a very feminine level because of some of those things that's in there. Not in a good way. This is not good for the way that women would perceive men and society, the patriarchy and stuff like that going forward. It's a really bad film for how divisive it is for its messaging and its overall message as well. And the intent behind it is to make women feel insecure, victimized, and oppressed. That is the intent. And that feminism is the only way that they'll save them. So as much as people are siding with Ken, that's not the purpose of the film. And the ultimate acknowledgement that proves this is the ending of the film, when they could have given equality to the Kens, and they choose not to. They choose to oppress the Kens until women get equality in the real world, when women have equality in the real world. And the difficulties that women face that's unique to their gender is balanced out by the difficulties men have to face that's unique to their gender. So how about we just try and help everyone out in their difficulties instead of only victimizing, one side of the aisle, when we're all capable of go through crap. But the message of Barbie is women are oppressed in the real world, and the ultimate end goal is to get revenge against men. We'll oppress you for as long as we perceive women being oppressed in the real world. This is not a pro-male film in any way. But I do want to talk about some of the themes that people have mentioned that they feel it is kind of pro-men on the Ken side of things. And why I think it's a bit more of a mask off and that they're just bad at their job. And it's also an acknowledgement of how awful, fourth wave feminism really is. So, I mean, one of the first things that I noticed, which was gave you sympathy for Ken, right, is when Ken gets to the real world and he feels seen and acknowledged. And it does make Ken feel like a victim, okay? That it gets you to sympathize for Ken because he's like, I'm finally getting acknowledged. The reason why this is a bad thing, the whole point of that right there, and it's all there to contrast with Barbie, who is feeling, I'm not feeling, or I'm getting seen, but not the way I like. And then she says, I don't feel safe. And I was like, oh. That's the purpose of that scene, to make a contrast and to try and show that the way Ken is feeling, Ken is roles are reversed, basically. That's the whole point of it. And to paint a picture that the real world is just horror, like hellscape patriarchy. And it's also, this is so interesting and weird and also awful and bad, right? The real world is not like this. Just walk down the street and you can see that. This is insanity that they're trying to pick the real world to be like this, right? But this is the way that insane activist feminists think the world is. And they'll just say, all of this stuff does exist. We just put it together in, you'll come across this in probably separate parts in your life. We just put them together. And it's like, some of these things I've never even come across once in my life. And if people say it does exist in the world, really rarely, in terms of, in the modern day, how many men actually go up to a random girl on walking along a street and slap her on the rear end?
In this day and age, no one.
Not often. I'm not saying it doesn't happen,
there are
but
parts
it's
of the
not
world,
often.
yes.
And if it does happen, most guys, me included, will be like, what the hell did you just do? Because guys will step in and call them out, okay? And to say that other men, because the film is trying to say that not only men do it, but they would celebrate and happy do it, and they'll catcall and all this bullcrap. Insane feminists, they not only, because the world isn't like this to the level that they perceive, right? But the Barbie film is almost depicting the world that they want. They want the world to actually be this misogynistic because then that validates their activism, extremism completely. They can hate men because they deserve it, because the world is like that. And that's why this film struck me as like a feminist wet dream, because this is the world they actually want to happen to validate who they are. And women do like to get validated. So do guys, I'm not saying. But the Barbie film is all about validating certain insecurities and activisms and beliefs and stuff. And so, yeah, it does feel bad for Ken, but the purpose of it is to make you feel bad for women, not to feel bad for Ken. Because one of the hot takeaways of the film is that Ken deserves it. He deserved to never have been acknowledged. He deserved to be a secondhand thing. And people trying to... like the people who made the film, trying to justify it because that's the role of Ken the doll. He was an accessory, okay? He should be a secondary character. I agree he should be a secondary character, but he shouldn't have been hated, okay? And oppressed and belittled, right? Barbie, Dreamhouse, cartoon show, Ken was absolutely a secondary character, but Barbie loved him and he had his virtues. And one of his virtues was actually a masculine virtue, to help Barbie whenever she was in trouble. He had a Barbie sense, like a spider sense, that he would be like, Barbie's in trouble, she needs my help, and he would run to go help her. I liked that because it is the man's role to help women when they're in trouble. Absolutely. That was actually even a positive depiction of a guy that's a secondary character that is a goofball that I think worked brilliantly. Yeah. And I would have loved that in the Barbie film if they did the Ken sense. That is just, and the reason why he's so desperate to help Barbie is because he loves her. What a positive, wonderful thing that would have been. But no, he is an accessory, an unwanted accessory that's disdained and treated like a second-class citizen. So the validation that this is okay, the treatments of the Ken's okay because Ken is an accessory is wrong. And I push back. No. You can have Ken as the secondary character, but in a much more positive way that was in the Barbie brand from the beginning. Barbie loved Ken, Ken loved Barbie. It's not here. So, okay, there's that, where Ken appears in the real world and the sympathy that people might perceive. into Ken, okay? And then Ken starts to see patriarchy everywhere. Again, really false, disingenuous depiction of the world where he sees a world run by men, and you see like images of Sylvester Stallone, and in all the advertising, men are everywhere. I'm like, hang on, advertising, like billboards. Sexy women are usually on those things vastly more than men. The adage, sex sells? Like,
I mean, it's such a bubble though, because I feel like that with the Barbie movie, it's in such its own, like you were saying before, it's what they want the world to be. It's in such a bubble. Anything like that for me will pull me out and go, that's not realistic. Because even then, it's like men or women or modern day, I'm used to just diverse people being on advertisements.
But see, this is what the feminists want the world to be perceived as, to make women feel like victims and ignored second-class citizens in the real world, that, you know, men are the ones that have all the power. Okay? And so Ken discovers patriarchy, that it's the patriarchy. And the real world, it's not like that at all. Patriarchy is not ruling the world, okay? It's a myth. I mean,
we don't have group meetings each week to tell, what's going on or whatever.
Now, in terms of a patriarchal system, there are systems that are patriarchal, like traditional households. The man is the head of the household. That's a traditional patriarchal system. And guess what? It's a system that men and women pushed for. Okay? There's an interesting concept called external flowing power and internal flowing power. Okay? Because external power is the power needed to interact with things outside of your environment. Threats, usually, negotiations and stuff like that, business dealings and things. And there are some natural qualities that men have that assist us in those types of interactions, especially if they devolve into violence. And as a result, women kind of were pushing men to fill that role. But there's also another type of power called inwards flowing power, like managing a household, the hiring and firing of staff, balancing a budget, deciding what would be eaten and how children were raised. You kind of see what gender usually filled those roles historically. And that was a form of power that women have stereotypically used quite a lot. And men were happy for women to do that as well because they're really good at it.
It's funny how they always mention the patriarchy, but never the matriarchy. It's always feminism.
Exactly. That there are many instances where women have had power historically and ran certain things, run households, right? That they don't like to acknowledge. They want to ignore. There's always men in power, okay? But no, men have usually done outwards flowing power, and that's what you could kind of call as the patriarchal system. It's a very traditional system, and in some ways, it's actually the best system that women have wanted men to fill as well, because when the barbarians are at the gate, who do you want to handle the fighting, okay? And also just like negotiations, right? And business dealings and stuff. Have you heard the term or something similar to like business is war? Or like there's a lot of conflicts revolving business that sometimes you need to be cutthroat and sometimes even merciless and just like that. Do you wonder why men might be able to find success in that role stereotypically? I'm not saying women can't be great businesswomen. They can. But on average, men sometimes find strengths that are inherent, a part of being a man, that helps out in those roles. Okay? And so, yes, I actually will acknowledge there are some patriarchal systems in place. And there are some of those that are actually even good. I think it's good that men, they'll be the head of the household because they're going to protect that household. But in reality, women still run the household as well. It's just the different roles, okay?
It's very true.
Yeah, and any husband that does not listen to his wife is not doing the role of a good husband, okay? And this is the important role, even in these patriarchal systems that do exist, right? If the patriarchs, the head of the household, if it's a man, right, is not listening to the wife, and if the patriarchal governing bodies are not listening to women voices and everything like that, they're not doing their job. Okay? All right. But in terms of the overall, it's a patriarchal system that's oppressing that women can never be CEOs or never get in government and stuff like that, bullcrap. Absolute nonsense. But that's what the movie wants to depict. Okay. So the next kind of thing that people say is almost on the positive male side, is how unreasonably effective patriarchy is when it comes to the Barbie world. They try and say it's because the Barbies have no defense against it. It's like when a disease comes over from another country that they don't have a immune system for it. They just succumbed to it completely. When people might and have to interpret that to say the movie's actually saying, which is not, that's the deflection. They're trying to say it only worked because they had no defense. But some people can read and say, they're saying the patriarchy is really effective. It's a much more effective system in gaining control, I guess, than other systems. Well, the deflection is that that's not the excuse the Barbie film gives, even if people want to read into it and say it is. I'd also like to comment on the perspective that Ken is a type of men's rights hero. That is really the hero and main character of the entire film, where he leads revolution and liberates the oppressed Kens. We do need to remember that the Kens were put back into their oppressed state at the end of the film. None of this liberation was even achieved, and Ken himself, at the end, acknowledges that he was wrong, and that the Barbies are right to treat the Kens in this manner, and that everything he did in the film was evil and vile, and that women really are the oppressed ones in the real world, thus the Kens deserve to be oppressed in Barbie world. Not only is that a horrifying message, that is the supposed hero of the story betraying everything that he was supposedly fighting for, and not only losing at the end of the film, but joining the other side and fighting against all the positive things people might interpret that he was representing. This next part I find particularly funny, and I think this was I think they did this by accident. I think they did this because they were just bad at their jobs. The Barbies, under the patriarchy that Ken imposes, are all really happy. They're bimbos. They're bringing Ken's the beer on a plate, and they're doing all that. But they are all, each of them, really happy and loving this, and they adore their Kens.
Unlike the Kens who were suffering before with the Barbies.
Well, the Kens were oblivious to it, right? But as soon as Ken kind of got acknowledgement, then he's like, this is really good, right? Because and you also hit on why this is not a defense of the film either, to say it's got a pro-male message, right? Because the film literally tries to say that they're brainwashed. That if they actually were aware of how oppressed they are, they would not be happy. Again, but it is interesting. It just is like, the film is showing the Barbies perfectly happy under the patriarchy with the Kens. And then, what I find even more hilarious, the way that they break the brainwashing of the Barbies is to make them realize how awful everything is, essentially to make them unhappy.
Yeah.
So, what an interesting self-report about feminism.
Patriarchy works, and then you bring in feminism.
And it makes women unhappy.
Yeah.
And
everyone suffers.
At the beginning of this video, I was talking about the whole thing that you need feminism to work is for women to feel dissatisfied, victimized, and unhappy. So therefore, the very causing thing to make women unhappy. You can't work unless they're unhappy. So feminism, by its design, is to make women feel unhappy. They'll try and say, we're just opening their eyes up to the reality of things. And that now being self-aware, they'll be dissatisfied with it. If it was so obviously bad, they wouldn't need feminism to show them that it was bad. They would just be unhappy with it as it is. I don't need to feel a whip on my back when I'm enslaved to realize, oh, I'm enslaved, right? So if it was truly, truly bad, feminism wouldn't be needed because all women would be aware of it by the very nature of how awful life is for women. But it's actually not like that. In the real world, women can find great satisfaction and joy, same with men, and it's not a system where everything is against them. So then feminism wants to convince them that they are victims, and then as a result, they're really unhappy. And it's a self-report because they can't really depict feminism, honestly, unless they do that. And so literally, the film there's a mum from the real world who comes in that starts spouting feminist propaganda, but also women victimization, validation talking points. It's like, it's awful to be a woman, so you have to do this is bad, bad, bad. And as a result, the Barbies, they break their brainwashing and they become unhappy. People have been also trying to say that this is a self-report, it's pro-male as a result because it's showing that women were actually happy. The film always tries to address that by trying to say, no, they're just brain. There's always a messaging to show you the framing, what the film actually intends. And it shows how anti-male it is and how feminist it is, and that this isn't good. Because very few people watch the Barbie and see this subtext, right? And especially women who like to get validated in feeling victimized and stuff like that, they will just lap up the surface level true message of the film. They won't see an actual, are we the baddies? Because there's a moment in the film when Barbie is trying to talk to Ken, and Ken talks about that he was truly moved when someone asked him the time. He shows him his watch. Someone asked me the time. It's like he felt wanted and appreciated for the first time. And people are trying to say, see, they're sympathizing with Ken. This is pro-male. To me, that just emphasizes how awful the Kens were treated and how terrible the Barbies are. And that's the system that they reinforce at the end. They want the Kens to be put back in that box to never get acknowledged and have no lives like that. That's horrifying. It's not this film is great. That's just right? And there's a couple of other things. I don't think I can remember everything, but those are some of the main kind of, this is actually pro men. Perhaps there's another thing like, and this is weird because it's also a bit of a self-report. When the Kens overtake Barbie Land, they are still holding democratic elections. And there's a democratic election that they're about to hold to have men in, it'll replace the president, I think, and, the Supreme Court or whatever in the Barbie Land. And which is weird because I think there's more Barbies in the Barbie Land than Kens, and with a democratic election, they wouldn't win.
Yeah.
But I guess the Barbies are all brainwashed, so they'll vote for Kens as well.
Right.
And again, instead of saying this is acknowledgement of, patriarchy is actually fair and giving women the vote, the actual truth behind that is that the women who support patriarchy are just brainwashed and are suffering from internal misogyny and are unaware of it. And so any woman that would vote for a man, all right, or systems that support men, that's what the film is really saying here. They're brainwashed. They and feminism is the thing to teach them the truth, to liberate them by making them dissatisfied, unhappy, and showing themselves for the victims that they really are. Which is a vile, divisive kind of intent behind this film. The Barbies ultimately win by, again, I don't know how people can see that this is a positive thing by Ken making this is where Ken is singing about I'm just Ken and stuff like that. When the cause, the thing that gets the Kens to do this is to play on the Kens' insecurities and desires to dominate and own the Barbies. So what they do, the Kens all have their Barbies, right? And the Barbies that are now freed of their brainwashing, they get up and they switch to another Ken to make the Ken that were jealous. And so because men are so possessive, the Kens are so possessive, they have to have their Barbie, they start to get in a conflict with the other Kens and they start fighting and they have a dance singing battle. And it's that distraction, the dance singing battle, that they forgot about the election to then vote that the Barbie's able to win.
Oh, shit, this movie's so dumb.
It really is.
Oh.
But the way Barbies win is by denying men the vote. Not by law, but by a tactic to get them not to vote. But they went out of their way to deny Kens the ability to vote in regards to how they are treated. But you know why I reckon they did that?
Why?
Well, women were denied the vote in the past. It's not about equality, you see, Nathan. It's about oppressing in the way that they feel they have been oppressed. It's about revenge. And so it's just appropriate that the Kens didn't get to vote in this important election by distraction. One might even say it was very dodgy tactics. It's kind of like they fortified their approach in that election. And they thought it was perfectly fine to do that because it wasn't about the morality of the way they achieved it. It was about the outcome. They won. So even though they screwed over Ken's in the subversive way they fortified it, they got the result that they wanted. So, no, I do not think this film is pro-male in any way. Even if there are some face-off moments about feminism and certain readings you can take into it, the film is very clear that if you think, that there's a subtextual meaning about patriarchy being more effective, no. It's because they're just not, they don't have a defense against it. They always give an excuse to try and explain away these other readings because the film is very clear about what it is. It's anti-male, it's man-hating, and it's feminist propaganda through and through. But what do you think? Have you seen the Barbie film? These are my additional thoughts on it. Let us know. And as always, stay on watch.